Okay, so it appears that Adam from WhatCulture.com has posted the second half of his how WWE should have booked the WCW invasion. Of course, it's called the invasion because it also included ECW people as well. So here we go. So I got the sound loud enough. I do like the invasion graphic he's got. It looks nice.
Hello, I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com and welcome to How WWE Should Have Booked, where I look back at infamous WWE missed booking opportunities and talk about how I would book them differently because I'm a smart ass. Invasion, Part 2. Sam, a quick recap, please. First things first, no ECW, no alliance, just WCW versus WWF. So instead of Vince getting involved with Stone Cold, Vince's whole thing is he continues his midlife crisis. I crushed WCW. Vince lines up a whole bunch of ex-WCW guys in the ring. You got Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko. Triple H said, "Yeah, Vince, I sort of wanted a title shot," when suddenly, if you smell Rock wins. Triple H loses it, goes backstage, trashes his locker room. And then finally, The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, when suddenly, Scott Hall climbs over the barricade and is joined by Kevin Nash. Out comes Hulk Hogan. They spray WCW in the middle of the ring. Finally, out comes from the crowd Eric Bischoff. Did you think we were just going to go away, Vince? And then, why do we need a recap? They can just watch the previous video. Alright. Hello, so Raw begins with Vince. Raw begins with Vince. He refuses to let anyone from the NWO in the building. He replays the clip of Eric saying, "Do you think we were just going to go away?" Vince. He explains, Shane McMahon, his own flesh and blood, sold his share of WWF and of WCW to Eric Bischoff. Vince says, "I've got it under control. There will be no invasion. Tonight we're going to have a rematch. The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWF title. You people get your rematch." He turns around, DDP's run in, bang, hits him with his diamond cutter, then legs it. And this happens for the rest of the night. WCW guys ruining WWF's shit. Lance Storm super kicks his old Thrill Seekers partner Chris Jericho. Booker T runs in on the Dudleys match. Billy Kidman hits Eddie Guerrero with the European title. You know, it's chaos night. What's going on? Then finally, we get to the main event, and of course, the NWO run down again. They ruin the match. They beat them up 3-on-2 again. But then Triple H piles in to help The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Suddenly, it's 3-on-3. Triple H, The Rock, and Stone Cold.
That should have been the match they did at WrestleMania.
And Hogan. Then the rest of the WCW guys run
instead of doing
Booker T,
Hogan,
Billy Kidman, just those
Rock,
guys for now. Then
Austin Hall,
Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, but those guys fight for WWF. They left WCW. WWF is their home. Finally, the men stand opposite each other, and JR screams, "The battle lines have been drawn!" The invasion pay-per-view is set. It replaces Unforgiven. And Eric Bischoff promises it's not just going to be WCW that kicks Vince's ass. He's going to kick Vince's ass. Well, not him specifically, but he challenges Vince McMahon to a street fight. Vince McMahon accepts, saying, "I can't wait to paste your ass all around this ring." And Eric Bischoff says, "Oh no, it's not me you'll be fighting. It's sort of Mr. WCW." Woo! Out comes Ric Flair, because around Survivor Series time, his contract was up and he was ready to come one for the WWF. Anyway, Ric Flair comes out, cuts a promo on how WCW was much better than WWF, you know, citing all the old NWA days. You know, really get that heritage.
Ric Flair versus...
Invasion, which looks like this. So, Lance Storm beats Chris Jericho for the IC title. Booker T and DDP beat the Dudleys for the Tag Team Championships. Ric Flair beats Vince McMahon, and the NWO beats Triple H.
Yeah, I would have seen Sting McMahon.
Triple H switches sides. Now, I know I promised no sloppy betrayals. This is the only one, Scout's Honor, because it's the only one that makes sense. Why would anyone leave WWF for WCW after WCW just ran itself into the ground? You know, the company couldn't survive by itself, so why would they chance their odds on an invading WCW? Instead, the only reason Triple H leaves is he was being mistreated by Vince, by his family, who never delivered on any of his promises. So Triple H says, next night on Raw, "Do You know why I did what I did? Because you know the only wrestling family I actually have? The only guys who stuck with me through everything, the only guys who never let me down? It's the Clique. With his best buddies, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, Triple H officially joins NWO. And X-Pac completes the set. He brings the light heavyweight title over to WCW, renames it the Cruiserweight title.
Triple H NWO works.
X Factor. That tension has been building ever since X Factor lost their title. Invasion's just happened, and if it's anything like the, frankly, much worse Invasion pay-per-view that actually happened, this will rake in serious coin. Okay, the Invasion pay-per-view, the bad version, raked in $10 million just by itself. So if we can get that, then I think we've got a bit more money to throw around, and we can maybe buy out one more contract. And that contract is going to be Goldberg. And trust me, yeah, Goldberg is expensive, but he's worth it. So the Invasion pay-per-view was a great night for WCW, and Eric
Big round Invasion time, yeah.
all his guys together with all their new gold. We've got the light heavyweight title, now the cruiserweight title, we've got the intercontinental title, the tag team title. Bischoff brings out Triple H. He brings out Shane. He says, we've got both of your prodigal sons right here. I've got almost everything I've ever wanted. Problem is, I don't want half the company. I want everything. So he brings out Vince McMahon and says, Vince, I've got a proposition for you. You think you can beat WCW? How about this? Survivor Series, 5-on-5 elimination tag match.
Winner take all.
Take all. The leader of the winning team, they control the WWF. So Vince McMahon is like, no, that's a stupid plan. Why would I risk my company? And Eric says, I thought you might say that. And then suddenly Triple H turns around and pedigrees Shane McMahon. After all, they've got everything they wanted from the guy, so they punish Vince McMahon's son in front of him. And Vince, because he's slowly turning babyface, is like, get your hands off my child, thanks. So Shane McMahon is left lying in the middle of the ring. Eric, everyone else leave. Everyone leave the ring. And then just as Shane McMahon is rising to his feet, he turns around, and guess who slid in the ring? Goldberg. Bam! 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 Goldberg spears Shane McMahon out of his trousers. And he picks him up, jackhammers him, busts him open with rights and lefts. Goldberg just keeps hitting him and hitting him and hitting him until eventually Vince says, all right, you've got your match. Just please stop murdering my son. And Eric says, thanks, Vince. Smug old grin. Final image of the night is Vince cradling bloody boy. Babyface turn confirmed. So we've got Survivor Series. That card looks like this.
X-Pac, Malenko, Guerrero. So Hogan, Hall,
At the end
Nash,
of the night,
Flair, Goldberg versus...
WCW win. It can be by shenanigans. If you want, I don't think it should.
Okay, so for Survivor Series, X-Pac, Dean Malenko, not a bad match. Eddie versus Chavo, European. Chavo win, not a bad match. Tag belts, DDP and Booker T versus APA versus Dudley versus Hardys. Okay, Triple H beating Vince and Shane. Your main event, Hogan, Hall, Nash, Flair, Goldberg versus Rock, Austin, Angle, Jericho, Kane. That's not a bad setup. They had access to none of those guys during the original one. That's why I was, like Shane, Big Show. Yeah, because it was Shane, Rob Van Dam, Austin. Man, I'm just banking on I think Booker T. Yes, that's a better match. Rock, Angle, Austin, Jericho, Kane on the other side. That works well.
At the end of the night, Team WCW win. It can be by shenanigans, which you want.
Vince would never book.
But after all, WCW will finally have established itself as a force to be reckoned with. Like bad guys that can get stuff done, which they never were in the old Invasion. JR and Heyman are like, what the hell is happening now? What do we even tune into tomorrow? Is it going to be Monday Night Raw? Are we going to be WWF anymore? What is going to happen? The world, as we know it, is over. The World Wrestling Federation, as we know it, is over. Next night, the fans tune in droves to see WCW Monday Nitro. The same old title. Out comes Eric Bischoff to open the night, and it looks just like Nitro used to look. You've got the WCW ring. The Titantron is gone and replaced. Everything is WCW except for JR and Heyman. So Eric Bischoff gets to the ring and says, well, you gonna see some changes around here. So Bischoff's in the ring. He brings out a battered Vince McMahon and tells him, you're fired. He announces some changes to the calendar. It's going to be Monday Nitro and Thursday Night Raw. But Bischoff tells the fans not to worry. He's not going to change everything. You know, he's going to let JR and Heyman still call the action on commentary. But then he says to Heyman, Heyman, I like your moxie, kid. You're doing a good job. Tell you what, I'm going to double your pay. I'm going to give you twice as much as JR has because you know what? I value you. Heyman basically turns heel commentator and starts siding with WCW for every single match. Because let's be honest, heel Heyman is much, much, much better than face Lawler. I love Jerry the King Lawler to bits, but ever since he turned face, it never quite worked. He didn't have that spark back.
Definitely.
He could bring Jerry Lawler back, absolutely, but just have him be an on-air personality. He can be a manager. He'd be a great heel manager. So we keep JR and Heyman on commentary, and Bischoff is saying, well, it doesn't just change there, because, like, I'm not going to fire anyone, guys. That's not the way Eric Bischoff does business. I'm a smart businessman, okay? Look, yeah, I fired Vince, but I'm not going to fire any of the WWF superstars. That's just bad for business. They're just going to go to my competitors. The WWF guys, you can stay. You're probably going to have a bad time, but everyone can stay. Because after all, Uncle Eric's here to make the company better. And speaking of making things better, he announced that he has the power.
There's the first half an hour.
Armageddon, and instead he books in Starrcade, WCW's answer to WrestleMania. He said it's going to be the most stacked card you can possibly imagine. I'm going to book
One thing I wish they would have done, they would have taken
matches, because after all,
both of
I'm better in charge.
the different matches.
Will punish the Giant. He refuses to call him the Big Show. He only calls him the Giant. Angle versus Flair. Clean living and integrity versus the dirtiest player in the game. You got The Rock going up against Hulk Hogan, and you've got Stone Cold Steve Austin defending the WWF title against Kevin Nash. See everybody? What a card. Uncle Eric cares. Smug old grin. So the weeks progress before Starrcade, and Uncle Eric says that he cares, but it's clearly obvious from the way he books things that he's favouring the WCW guys. He weights everything against the WWF guys against their favour. He repeatedly goes against not just WWF guys, but ex-WCW guys like Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, The Big Show, all the guys who left him, and he's basically running amok. So a few weeks before Starrcade, he stands in the middle of the ring and says, no force on earth can stop this invasion, no man alive. Lights go out. Then we see on the Titantron some creepy images of graves and smoke and the moon and 3 little girls or something like that. And then a creepy voice says, gong. Out comes The Undertaker, led by Paul Bearer. He's returned to his dead man persona. And JR bigs it up. He is the spirit of the WWF. He has returned to haunt WCW. Undertaker grabs Eric and hits him with a tombstone pile driver. Next week, the final show before Starrcade, Eric realizes, yeah, he can't beat The Undertaker by himself. So instead, he needs to bring in a similar creature of the night. He brings in Sting. Now, I know we have a lot of problems with Sting, because Sting refused to come to the company because of the way they treated WCW guys. But seeing as this is a less ego-driven angle than the Invasion angle was, hopefully we can coax him over to the WWF. So Sting comes out in eerie darkness. Out comes The Undertaker. Sting points the bat at The Undertaker. Undertaker cuts his throat. That's the final image for Starrcade, the card of which looks like this. Goldberg beats The Big Show, Angle beats Flair, The Rock beats Hogan, The Undertaker beats Sting, and Kevin Nash, with Scott Hall's help, beats Stone Cold Steve Austin. We have a new WWF champion, and Austin celebrates this by Stone Cold stunnering everyone in the building. Stone Cold goes up against the entire NWO, beating on all of them. The next pay-per-view is sold out. That's right, the Royal Rumble is cancelled. Boom. Nuclear heat on Uncle Eric, who thinks, hey, I'm just doing what I think's best for business, guys. Austin's going up against the entire NWO, so the match is made. Austin versus Scott Hall versus Kevin Nash versus Hulk Hogan, a fatal four-way for the WWF Championship, and sold out. Meanwhile, Undertaker sets his sight on Triple H for betraying the company. After all, the Undertaker is the biggest company man of them all. And the dirtiest player in the game, Ric Flair, challenges the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, The Rock, to see who can be the most charismatic man in the history of professional wrestling. Sold out. The card looks like this. Sting beats Kurt Angle, Triple H beats The Undertaker, Ric
Sting,
Flair
Kurt
beats
Angle,
The Rock,
good match.
and Hulk Hogan pins Nash after Austin stunners him,
Goldberg,
beginning
Edge.
dissension
That'd be a good
in
match.
the NWO. The Clique and the NWO are infighting amongst themselves whilst Hogan defends his actions in winning the WWF title. The Rock comes out and says WCW may have won the battle, but they have not won the war. There's still a war going on between WWF and WCW, and a war needs a very special kind of match. A war needs war games. So we've got the four-man team of Team WWF, The Rock, Austin, The Undertaker, and Kurt Angle, versus a team of Hogan's choosing. And because all this infighting, Hogan doesn't pick Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Instead, the team is Hulk Hogan, Triple H, Booker T, and DDP. That all goes down, not at No Way Out, but at Super Brawl, and the card looks like this. So the War Games match ends with Team WWF finally victorious. They finally win a big one.
Goldberg, Rob Van Dam, Sting, Kane, Outsiders, Hardys. Good matches.
Submissions on Team WCW at the same time. Austin has Hogan in $1 million dream. The Rock has Booker T in a sharpshooter. The Undertaker has a triangle choke on Triple H, and Kurt Angle locks the ankle lock on DDP. DDP is the first one to say he gives up. Team WWF conquer at War Games. The Clique are getting worse and worse. They're still infighting. So Triple H brings in the daddy of the Clique to sort it out. He brings in, next night on Raw, Shawn Michaels. He wants Shawn Michaels to get everyone around and sing Kumbaya, but they refuse. And in fact, Michaels reprimands them. He reprimands Hall, Nash, and Triple H. He says, you guys left. You guys turned your back on the WWF. This was your home. These were the people that made you. What's wrong with you? And Triple H says, well, yeah, you've got a point. But to propose a counter-argument, kicks him in the gut, pedigrees him. He wants Hall, Nash, and X-Pac to help him beat up Shawn Michaels, but they refuse, because look at us. What's happening here? Hall, Nash, and X-Pac leave the ring, NWO disbands. Triple H says, go then. Go, I don't need you. I'm one of the WCW's biggest stars. He turns around into a super kick from Shawn Michaels. So things are going very bad for Eric Bischoff. NWO has disbanded. Hogan is basically playing his own game. A lot of titles have gone back to WWF, and the WWF kicked ass at Super Brawl. He screams, I am in charge. I will have order. I am in charge. Then suddenly, no chance. Success with your gut. Pity powder, kicking powder stuff. Vince McMahon. He comes out with his swagger and says, guess who's back? Vince takes a microphone and says, did you really think I was going to go away, Eric? Turns out that Linda McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, they sold their stock in the company to Vince in order to bring him back. And they join him in the entrance ramp. Finally, the McMahons are united. All four of them, the owners of the WWF. They are the WWF family. They walk down to the ring. Vince says, you can beat McMahon down, but you cannot kill a McMahon. From behind them, out comes every WWF guy that Eric had ever mistreated, and they act as a barrier, making sure that no WCW guys can save Eric. The McMahons come down, and they kick Eric Bischoff's ass. They kick his ass long enough until he agrees to put the company back on the line. It's all going to come to a head at WrestleMania. And for WrestleMania, Bischoff sort of said himself, look, I mean, we made a huge deal with the venue last year. This company can't back out. We have to do WrestleMania. So the company is on the line. There are 11 matches booked, and whoever gets the most wins the company. The last night before WrestleMania,
That's a lot of matches.
Raw, the main event is an epic shoot promo between Eric Bischoff and Vince McMahon. They go 20 minutes, and they just unleash everything. All of the horrible things they did to each other in the Monday Night Wars. Eric's shady business practices, Vince keeping young stars down. They unleash on each other, like Paul Heyman did on Vince McMahon. It is a shoot promo for the ages, and it sort of writes a line underneath the Monday Night Wars. So finally, we have WrestleMania, and the card looks like this. Edge wins a 20-man battle royale for immunity. We have a WWF guy win that in order to be a red herring. Jeff Hardy wins the Cruiserweight title, now the light heavyweight title.
So you have the 20-man battle royal for immunity, just like they did at Survivor Series. X-Pac, Shane Helms, Matt and Jeff Hardy for your light heavyweight. European Eddie, Benoit, Chavo, Kidman, IC, Jericho, Flair.
Again, from X-Pac in a fatal four-way. Billy Kidman wins the European title. Ric Flair wins the IC title. Booker T and DDP beat the Dudleys in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Vince McMahon beats Eric Bischoff. The
Awesome match.
Retain their
Love to have seen that.
Big Show and Kane. Shawn Michaels beats Triple H in a no-holds-barred match. The Undertaker
If you
beats
saw
Goldberg
later
in a
at SummerSlam.
versus Streak match. Sting beats The Rock in an Icon versus Icon match. And it's capped off with Legend versus Legend. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Hulk Hogan. And everything's tied up 5-5. It all comes down to Hulk Hogan versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Both faces of their generation, both faces of their company. In the middle of the ring, Stone Cold hits a stunner. 1, 2, 3. He beats Hulk Hogan, regains the WWF Championship, and WWF win back control of the company. And WrestleMania 18 ends with JR screaming, "Tune in tomorrow for Monday Night Raw." And it begins with an address from Vince McMahon, and he calls out Eric Bischoff. And he says, "Look, over the last few months, you fired me, and that's fine, I understand business is business. But you didn't fire any of my guys. You know what, I respect that. I respect that head for business. So I'm not going to fire any of your guys." He says, "Together, we're going to make the WWF the strongest wrestling company it can be. The best of WWE and the best of WCW." He and Bischoff shake hands, the handshake that ends the Monday Night Raw. And then Vince swerves everyone by making Eric Bischoff the general manager. Because as Vince says, he'd rather have a son of a bitch working for him than working against him. And Eric looks down the camera and smiles that smug old grin. So guys, invading guys, how did I do?
Well, Adam, against all the meager odds I threw at you, you still managed to persevere and push back the Wrestling with Regret invasion. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe that I, an outsider, lost this confrontation that you yourself helped put together. Why does this all sound so familiar? You know what? This isn't over.
That awkward moment when your invasion angle flops harder than a fat chick at the beach.
Okay, and what about you guys at home? Did I book it better, or did I just bring in established names to help artificially raise the stakes and sugarcoat weak booking? Wink. Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Would it have been better? Yes. Did he pretty much bankrupt the company in the process? Yes. Did he take people who were retired and bring them back and put them in matches? Yes. Did he ignore the people who got injured? Yes. It's the height of actual fantasy booking. Had he actually been stuck using the people that were available at the time, it wouldn't have been as good. And he pretty much just went, "I'm going to hit all these rematches." Which the big complaint from people who were watching both companies at the time is that when the invasion angle happened, there were no big stars. It was pretty much the mid-card guys and a couple of names versus all of the WWF. And it's like, they had to bring in the ECW guys just to try to get more name talent, have the matches feel like they meant something. The Invasion pay-per-view, they had the Alliance team win because Austin jumped ship. Which was weird because earlier that year, Austin went heel and aligned himself with McMahon, and then aligned himself with Stephanie and Shane going against Vince. I still think had Triple H not gotten injured, the Invasion angle could have been a lot better. Because then you've had the two-man power trip on one side. And I think that Triple H could have done a great job if you had decided with Stephanie and Shane for the Invasion side. The downside too is with all the guaranteed money those guys had, even though this would have brought in a lot of money, I have a feeling that once this would have concluded and they would have done their spring cleaning, it would have destroyed the WWE afterwards. Because a lot of the guys who were able to be elevated because the Invasion was so kind of poorly done wouldn't have had any elevation. They would have kind of just all been stuck in the mire. Then all of a sudden, you've got all of the big name guys. You know, they're drawing. They cost a lot of money. Then you got to get rid of lots of the smaller guys. You might not have the ruthless aggression era, and without that, you'd probably still have Lesnar. Angle still would have been around for a little bit. You might not have had Orton. You might not have had Cena. It would have been harder for Edge to have really gotten a good foothold and moved forward. It also probably made it more difficult to have done the ECW bit. And if you don't have ECW as your additional add-on brand, then you lose the great run from John Morrison. You lose The Miz. Yes, The Miz is horrible. He's great when it comes to his mic work. You might not have had CM Punk. So there's a lot of things that even though the invasion didn't work, it brought in enough, I don't want to say cannon, but brought enough other people who could put on good. It brought a lot of workhorses. It didn't bring in big names, it brought in workhorses. And they were able to kind of weed through some of those guys. Yeah, during the time when they bought WCW, they could have picked up Christopher Daniels. And he is the workhorse of workhorses. The guy could have put some phenomenal matches, but he got let go because the E didn't see a really great need for him. They ruined DDP because they made him a stalker. You know, they could have easily made something really good out of him. They did an okay job with Booker T. Buff Bagwell, if Vince's ego wasn't as massive as it was, the invasion could have been a lot better. But the problem was he wanted everyone to know that the guys that they brought in that were available were the scrubs. They had no reason being in any of those matches, and they're just going to get annihilated. Do they have some good talent? Oh, yeah. Yeah. DDP, Canyon, Sean O'Hare. Those three guys alone. They could have brought back Christopher Daniels, who had just signed WCW before it folded. There's four guys who could have done a lot more with what they did. So the potential was there to do a lot more with what was available. You should bring more of the international guys that WCW kind of had a hold with, but they just didn't. You know, they didn't have the proper people. Vince wanted to make it abundantly clear that this was going to be a McMahon show. You know, do what Adam did to do a good job? Yeah. If money was no object, yeah, you can throw on a bunch of phenomenal dream matches and make people go, oh, I would have loved that. Yeah, and it would have been this great golden age of wrestling until about SummerSlam, when all the one-year contracts started to end, and all of a sudden all of your big stars are leaving, and you're stuck in the exact same spot you were just a couple months later. And then we wouldn't have had the Undisputed Championship. Now, of course, pushing all those things back, you don't have the awesome return of Triple H. You don't have Jericho being the first ever Undisputed Champion. If you don't have Jericho winning the belt, become Undisputed Champion, well, if you don't have that, then you don't have Triple H winning it, then you don't have it going through. I think that it went to Hogan. I think then it went Hogan, Taker, Rock, and then Rock dropping the belt to Brock Lesnar. And all of a sudden, Brock Lesnar isn't this massive beast that he was. I do like the idea of taking the other pay-per-views. If that's one thing I wish that Vince Company would have done, War Games is a fantastic style of match. It's a pain to book, and it's almost impossible to watch live. But it's a very good show. It's a very interesting concept. Starrcade, you know, I've often thought that the way that the E does their build-up, Royal Rumble to WrestleMania feels like it's a portion of a season. Then nothing kind of happens till about SummerSlam. SummerSlam, you get some build-up the month before. Survivor Series, and then WrestleMania Survivor Series. Really, nothing seems to get going more often than not. So SummerSlam and Survivor Series, you get a couple of things. Survivor Series going into Royal Rumble, you get a little bit of stuff, but pretty much the main bulk of their year is Royal Rumble to WrestleMania. I think if you were to work in like a Halloween Havoc and do something that's just more kind of gimmicky style matches, get rid of Extreme Rules because it doesn't work in the PG era. Halloween Havoc can kind of work. Doing a Starrcade event towards the end of the year would actually be pretty good. The main reason I think if you do one of those is then you kind of have your start of your season is Royal Rumble. Your big mid-season cliffhanger ends up being WrestleMania. You know, so you do a lot of build-up right there. Or if you want to do a more traditional style, you end up having your summer stuff is, you know, it's there. It's normally not the best written television. It's just the way the E is. And then you hit a ramp up to Starrcade. Starrcade ends up being your mid-season finale. Then you come back, Royal Rumble to WrestleMania. WrestleMania ends up being your end of the year. You finish off some other stuff in your Backlash or whatever you want to call it after that. And then you kind of slowly begin your build back up. Mid-season finale is your Starrcade. Come back, Royal Rumble, you're hitting the ground running again. Run all the way to WrestleMania. Month after WrestleMania, there's your finish up, your bits and pieces there. Kind of start your new cycle and move yourself forward again. Yeah, Armageddon, it was great when it was like, oh, this is when the world's supposed to end. Those sort of things was fine. TLC, the problem making it a pay-per-view is then you force matches to have stipulations that make no sense. You know, Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, you force matches to Hell in a Cell for no reason. I would rather see Hell in a Cell actually thrown out in an event instead of being its own event by itself, unless you're going to do all matches at Hell in a Cell. Same with Chamber. You know, this year for Chamber 2015, we just got to see like tag belts defended in a Chamber, IC belt. If you want to do Chamber, I think you defend every single belt in the Chamber. But doing that invalidates doing Night of Champions, which is fine. That's when you throw back in something like a King of the Ring or a Battle Brawl or Battle Bowl. Battle Bowl, you pretty much have separated in tag teams randomly. You did a tag team tournament, and then at the end, I think it was the last two guys fought, and the winner became the Battle Bowl champion. I would probably use that as a way to be like, oh, if you win the Battle Bowl, you know, the main guy gets the challenge for the big belt the next month. Same way you do with King of the Ring. But then you say the loser of the Battle Bowl gets a challenge for like the IC or US title. So both guys actually get something out of it. So there's a reason to work together to get as far as you can. Whereas King of the Ring single elimination tournament, whoever wins challenges the guy at the next pay-per-view. So, do you do a better job? Yes. That's not really hard to do. Because you kind of dream matched everything. And the problem with doing essentially a year's worth of booking in about 40 minutes is you can have a pay-per-view end in a random Smiles finish, and they're like, and the next night you're doing this. But if you have a pay-per-view end in a DQ, some people are going to be like, wow, that was awesome. And other people are going to be like, I paid money to see a match. I wanted to see, you know, the end of a match, not the start of an angle. So giving you everything from the book in one portion is a lot easier than keeping out a couple pages here and there. And then hoping that people, you know, stay tuned. And of course, when they first bought WCW, they initially wanted to keep WCW as a brand and try to do a Nitro. But the brand had lost so much money, they couldn't do that. That's why when he threw out the idea of, oh, you're turning to Monday Nitro, I'm pretty sure that a lot of the advertisers would have been flipping out, and it probably would have cost the E a significant amount of money. Because people who tune in to Raw are going to see Nitro that might turn quite a few people off. It was a brand that was undeniably poisonous. So while it sounds really cool, financially would make no sense. And it probably would have ended with the E maybe losing a ton of money, if not maybe some of the licensing agreements potentially getting sued by USA Network. Or TNN, whoever they were at that time, who was paying for the WWF, WWE style of wrestling, and said no to giving more time to WCW.